Oh, it's recording.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Keep it down. We're having a podcast in here. No.
Is that what your dad said?
Well, that's what Ed Orgeron says to his players.
I was curious who that voice was. You gotta smoke somewhere.
Welcome to the Non-Power Hour. This is, go. This is Max Stacks, and I'm losing my voice over here. I can't do this much longer.
Yeah.
But welcome into our second bowl episode. We're back on opposite ends of the country.
We are.
Time zones for the first time in a while, as I record from home in California, and Max
on vacation in Vermont. If you've ever been there, probably not. It's a pretty small state.
Probably shouldn't go.
Nice.
I am going to plug my computer in, but Max, why don't you preview some games this weekend?
Of course, Garrett. Happy to do so, my fellow non-power hourian. Yeah, so this week, again, like I said, we're looking at some more of the bowl games going on this next week or so, couple of days, especially those small teams that you didn't know were probably even playing in bowls or had a 6-win season, let alone an 8-win season. So to preview that, starting off with the game going on currently with Air Force, Washington State, and then go into some of the other smaller schools that are playing, including Memphis, who's playing in the New Year's Six Bowl and is the non-power conference representative in those games. And then talk about some basketball as well. And that'll be our show for the evening before New Year's Day Eve. The next one.
Correct.
So with that, I don't know, Garrett. I did not tally. Did we tally how we did last week? I know I missed a couple of games.
I did not tally.
Okay.
I will tally all of the games we're trailing on our efforts, and unfortunately, I will have to tabulate the results.
All right, perfect.
But I want to give some shout-outs to some teams that succeeded. First of all, North Carolina A&T winning the Celebration Bowl. Go Aggies, their like 9th straight Celebration Bowl.
Something like that.
They're there every year. We have San Diego State, of course, as I predicted, getting a massive win over Central Michigan with an offensive explosion of sorts. And the MAC has really been showing out. They went 2-0 on night one. They took a big L there on the second day, but we'll get to that, some more of that in a second. Liberty getting their first bowl victory over Georgia Southern, 23-16, in a little bit of an upset. FAU, from the Conference USA, the champs, defeating the SMU Mustangs, who were going for an 11-win season, I believe, which would really have been something for them. But the perceived weaker conference, the Conference USA, gets it done again on the big stage. Of course, except for Charlotte, who sucks.
Because they placed the juggernauts, the MAC. The MAC daddies.
MAC, the strongest conference.
Yeah, objectively.
Florida Atlantic taking home the 52-28 victory without Lane Kiffin on the sidelines, with a punctuating victory over the so-called Power Six, which I'm all for, by the way, but they've not been proving it necessarily. And I'm not really high on any of the conferences, of any of the small conferences. The Camellia Bowl, Arkansas State, Florida International. Arkansas State takes home an 8-point victory. So congrats to the Red Wolves and Coach Blake Anderson and the Sun Belt. Maybe they're the conference to beat. I think they're all kind of beating each other. The Conference USA, other than FAU's big victory, not really doing too well. On other fronts, UAB dropping, not a surprising loss to Appalachian State. Appalachian State punctuating a 13-win season
Yeah.
13-1 will probably finish in the top 25. Will certainly finish in the top 25, I should say.
Yeah.
Great stuff from a program just recently reclassifying to Division One FBS in the last few years. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, there's a Louisiana Tech was the other CUSA team to really represent the conference well, beating Miami 14-0. The first shutouts for Miami in like 20 years in a bowl game or something.
Right.
Very hard fought game. Jamar Smith led that team very well to take on the walk-on Independence Bowl and
Correct.
kind of epitome of the small school champion.
That's right. A tough game to watch, perhaps, if you're a fan of offense. But if you're a defensive guy like myself, it was eye candy, to say the least, watching those the once mighty Miami Hurricanes with their ironclad turnover chain.
Yeah.
Gold-clad, really. And not being able to put up a point on the mighty defense of the Bulldogs. So congratulations to them. Some other games real quick. We missed Washington blowing out Boise State in a little bit of a surprise. Maybe not as much that they won as how they won. Of course, a 31-point win in Chris Peterson's final game. Central Florida takes down Marshall to add another 10-win season to their resume. Third impressive season in a row with injuries. Marshall wraps up a solid season with a 23-point loss for Conference USA. And Hawaii, in an otherwise lackluster showing for the Mountain West, with Utah State and Boise State losing big, they take home on their home field, take down the BYU Cougars in what was in the first half was an offensive clinic, and then in the second half it slowed down considerably.
Yep.
But we did say pick the over, and I do believe it just barely went over.
Yeah, 72. I think it's a pretty.
Yeah.
I think we've gotten it.
I think it was like 69 or something. So
naturally,
a late score, I think, put that one over. Back to the MAC. They really have been doing well. Eastern Michigan, which really had no business dealing with a power. They were 3-5 in the weak MAC. Just barely making a bowl, scraping it out, maybe playing a little bit home field advantage. But they go up against the 7-win Power Conference team from the ACC, which is really kind of a
who beat UCF, I think, for their first loss of the season. So a team that's
right. That is correct.
Shown up at times.
And the ACC probably, non-power conference.
Honestly. Clemson and the rest, and Clemson sucks. So,
but yeah, I mean, they were really hanging in there with Pittsburgh's vaunted front four. Really held them at bay the entire night, and only a late score able to lift Pittsburgh there. But Eastern Michigan really showing out for the MAC, and then earlier this morning, Temple getting waxed by North Carolina. Another disappointing showing for the AAC.
Double A, okay.
Yeah, I know.
Took me a second.
Okay, so that covers all of the non-power games that have gone on since we last took the airwaves. Anything in particular stand out to you about the landscape of non-power teams and conferences?
Yeah. Nothing stands out a lot. I mean, definitely exciting to see some of the teams like FAU really show up against even another non-power conference, but just to really assert dominance on who they beat. SMU, good lord.
Right.
Great to see Eastern Michigan pull out, a really close, hard-fought game. They did lose that one, right, like you said, but to see them fight for so long, it's a lead for most of the game, but all the last minute, I think.
Right.
is pretty spectacular. So definitely happy to see these small schools, really trying to make a name for themselves to fight for some of the first wins, whether it's like Kent State in bowl season history or Liberty, as well as other teams like FAU, UCF continuing to show their postseason prowess. And it's exciting to see, and looking forward to seeing some more small schools come up. And I think that'll lead us to our first game going on right now, taking place, which is Air Force and Washington State. And I believe the Mountain West's final team to play in the bowl season.
Could be.
Um,
No,
I,
Wyoming's still going.
that's right. Yeah, of course. You right. Okay. Well, regardless, let's look at Washington State and Air Force, the game going on right now. What do you see happening? What do you see happening at the end, Garrett?
Oh yeah, so this episode might as well be renamed Garrett loses faith in all of the non-power teams
Yeah.
going against my major conferences. Particularly the Mountain West has been particularly disappointing.
Yeah.
Now Washington State had a disappointing season as well, finishing at 6-6. When you think about these teams, it's a total contrast in styles. Air Force, ironically, will hit you on the ground. Washington State for the air raid, trying to unleash the air raid on Air Force. Air Force with a decent, but at times lackluster defense, but Washington State with a complete juggernaut offense. Of course, Anthony Gordon, I think, setting the Pac-12 record for passing touchdowns in a season. Had like a 9-touchdown game earlier this season to help that. I think and their defensive struggles for Washington State have been caused by just the pace at which the offense moves, the defense on the field for so long. So we'll see what happens here. Air Force, more of a control the clock type team, run the ball, run the clock. Even if they do move at a quicker pace, they still just keep the clock moving when they have the ball. So I've lost faith in the Mountain West. I like Wazoo, Mike Leach, and his wacky ways. Anthony Gordon to punctuate off his amazing season with a shootout victory, 48-42. Look at the amazing artwork. Can't you see the cougar on top? Just the details, the whiskers, the eyes, and the mouth.
I love the AF better. I think the quality there of the boxiness of the shapes, the straight lines is really.
I definitely nailed the Air Force logo.
You definitely did, man. You did. Cool. Yeah. Well, speaking of logos, I think you got it right there in drawing the better logo for Air Force. I think they're the better team here. Yeah, just given how Washington State plays, I think if Air Force can keep them down to a low-scoring affair, certainly is looking that way right now. They're tied at 7 each midway through the second quarter or so. I just don't think that defense, Washington State's, is going to be able to hold up to the triple option. I think that as the game goes on, as the offense, goes quickly, either spiders out or scores quickly, you'll be over the long haul facing a lot of rushing plays, a lot of grinded out plays, a lot of hard-nosed football that I just think they've shown to not be accustomed to playing well against, which is why they've had these 6 losses, attributing to their defense just not putting out where the offense overperforms. So I just think that this kind of system is not built for them to do well. Air Force is a very powerful offense. When they get it going really well. And again, they just grind out the defense. And I think that over the course of this 4-quarter game, it's close right now. I think it's a good time for Air Force to keep it close. That's how they're going to win, I believe. And not so much of a barn burner. But give me Air Force, the Falcons flying high or flying low, going through the legs of the Cougars towards the pay dirt.
All right. That'll shift us to a New Year's Six Bowl coming a few days before the new year, going on tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. my time, 12 p.m. Eastern. We have the Memphis Tigers and the Penn State Titney Lions.
Yep.
Yeah. Max, who do you got in this battle of cats?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm taking Memphis here. I have not lost faith in the non-power teams. I think they've shown a lot of poise this postseason so far. This, of course, is the epitome of the conversation for why the playoffs should be expanded to allow a team like Memphis in, the Group of Five winner, if there wasn't a 6-team or 8-team expansion. And I think that Memphis has just done extremely well all season. I did see that Penn State's getting Kurt Shiraka from Minnesota to come in to be the QB's coach and the offensive coordinator, which I think will pose a big problem for Memphis. He's just a really good coach. I think he'll do well with Sean Clifford to get that team going. But Memphis has had a really good defense all season, giving up 24 points a game. Of course, an explosive offense, scoring over 40 all season. And they're on a hot streak. They've won the last 5 games pretty handedly. Closer wins, of course, against Cincinnati, but that's a very good, strong defensive team as well. I think that's what this Penn State team mimics closely. A very poised, a very controlling offense, and certainly a stout defense, as illustrated by their 14 points allowed per game all season. So I think Memphis has just shown the ability to play these really tough defensive-minded teams. I am worried about how the offense for Penn State will be able to explode if Christian Rocket can really come in and blend well with that high-powered offense with some of the stars that they have. But I do think that Brady White will be able to keep ahead of the pace there. Memphis will pull out the game with a dub and give the Group of Five teams, the non-power conference teams, another reason to celebrate and to say why there should be an expansion for the playoffs, which is what I want personally as well. Make it a 64-team playoff for all I care. Give me football all year long. But that's my thought, Garrett.
Right.
I believe you think differently there, right? You have Penn State winning this one?
Yeah, I have the Penn State Nittany Lions. They come
Yeah.
in here kind of limping a little bit, but I think Memphis they're gonna have to figure out other ways to exploit this very tough Big Ten tested Penn State defense, as you mentioned. Very strong, holding teams like Ohio State relatively in check, holding Michigan State to 7, Iowa to 12, Purdue to 7, Michigan to 21, and Memphis last week went up against its toughest defense all season against Cincinnati, and they did put up 34 points at home. But I think that Penn State's probably stronger than any defense, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty low on the AAC. And if Penn State can force Brady White to throw to other places other than DeMonte Coxey, actually, I think they'll be able to hold the Memphis Tigers in check and kind of run around the defense, so to speak, that has given up some big numbers in recent games to SMU, Houston, Tulsa, Temple, who got waxed by North Carolina.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be a close game. I think Penn State's gonna win it with a late score, cinch it with a late score, and they're going to take the Memphis Tigers by 10 points, 34-24. So here's another instance of me losing faith in small conference teams as I host the Non-Power Hour podcast. But
Great. Everyone's a critic, or you gotta you're the devil's advocate here, Garrett,
right.
telling us why this podcast is stupid.
Feel free
Why we
to
shouldn't care.
humiliate me. I mean, trust me. I'll be rooting for Memphis all the way. I'll be rooting for what's the other game that we have? I'll be rooting for Navy all the way.
Yeah.
But I just don't think they'll be able to get it done. I think that the AAC has been vastly overrated as a whole, and some of the defenses and competition they've gone up against has really not prepared them for what they're about to see in Penn State.
Then let's go to our game where you can't choose a power team to beat a non-power team because they're not playing each other. It's the Battle of the Westerns, Western Kentucky taking on Western Michigan. in the Serve Pro First Responder Bowl happening in Dallas, Texas. I can go first, Garrett, if
Yep.
you don't mind. I'm going to take Western Kentucky here. A little bit of an underdog here in the game. I think the logic there is that this Western Michigan offense is pretty powerful, but I do really like what Western Kentucky has done all year on defense, allowing just 20 points a game all season, and a kind of bend but don't break mentality in terms of the yards they allow, but points as well. I think that their starting quarterback, Ty Story, has done pretty well all season, been very efficient. They've got a 1,000-yard rusher in Gage Walker, excuse me, and just are on a bit of a hot streak. They beat Arkansas pretty bad. They beat Southern Miss, who's a pretty good team as well, a bowl-bound team, by 18 points. Then had a close one to Middle Tennessee State, but still pulled out the victory. Those recent losses have been to FAU and Marshall, two other bowl teams coming from the CUSA. So this is a team that's played some pretty good competition all season, has some pretty good wins, and just has a really stout defense. And I think playing a little bit closer to home than Western Michigan will give them that edge that they need to do well to keep this to a low-scoring affair. Plus, they just seem to have a lot of magic in the postseason. I feel like Western Kentucky every year is an underdog or is put over the team that I think will always somehow beat them, but they come together, whether it's a great passing offense they've had in the past, or maybe even this year as well with a more stout defense. I think that this team is always well prepared for a bowl game, will come out swinging, and take the bowl from Western Michigan.
Yeah, I agree. I think that despite the MAC's decent showing so far, I think that Western Michigan's going to stay within it punch for punch. But I think overall the quality of play is better on the Western Kentucky side. Both these teams are going to be coming in very cold, by the way. Haven't played a game in about a month.
Yeah.
Western Michigan hasn't won a game since November 12th in overtime against Ohio. So they haven't seen the ball go in the hole, to use a basketball analogy. They haven't really seen the ball go through the bucket in quite some time. So they might be a little bit rusty. Not that their coach isn't working them hard or anything like that. But, they sometimes struggle to get off the ground offensively. It remains to be seen how players like Levante Bellamy, John Wasink, of course, using his legs outside the pocket. If he can create a two-dimensional type offense for Western Michigan, I just don't think that they have the weapons to defeat an 8-win team in a very decent Conference USA this season. They've won 3 in a row. And yeah, it's been a while since they played, of course. Their most recent losses were to a very good Florida Atlantic team and a pretty decent Marshall team by 3 on the road. Other than that, they've been pretty much dominant, winning their other 7 games. As you mentioned, Ty Story putting together a really nice season. Again, it just seems like taking candy from a baby. A MAC team with their worst record, and less of a reliable quarterback in the pocket. Give me Western Kentucky. The MAC will punch hard as they have been all bowl season, but I like the Hilltoppers to take it 35-27. Shout out to Brett Williams, our friend from Honors freshman year, who is the announcer for I believe women's volleyball, women's basketball, maybe some other sports, maybe women's soccer at Western Kentucky.
Okay.
He's killing it over there. Big time school that's like a pretty big program to, he's just one more year out of college than we are. So obviously making a name for himself, just as we are in the same way that we are not making names for ourselves.
What's your name, Garrett?
Steven.
Steven, good.
Ricky.
Ricky. Of
Ricky
course.
Chan.
Cool.
Um, so I do not trust the MAC enough in this one, despite their good recent showing, and that will take us to back to a Power Five, non-Power Five matchup. We have the Navy. They're going up against Kansas State, and a very underrated team this year. They were able to make some noise in the Big 12. Navy very control the clock, just as with any other military academy. They obviously closed their season more recently than any other team. They finished their season against Army with a resounding win to put an end to Army's win streak. I don't know if we talked about that, and in very resounding fashion as well. They will be taking a ranking into this game, the Liberty Bowl. Let's see some notable wins this season: SMU, Tulane, Houston, but they couldn't beat the big boys. They couldn't beat Memphis. They couldn't beat Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And am I missing?
No, that's it. Those are the 2 losses.
That's their only 2 losses, correct?
Yeah.
They were able to defeat Air Force, who finished 10-2. Yeah, I don't really have too much of an explanation for this one, other than I'm losing faith in the entire AAC, and Kansas State has been solid enough, offensively, especially in that win over Oklahoma, a college football playoff team. They have some puzzling results. They lost at home to West Virginia. They were able to bounce back with a couple wins to end the season. So, does that mean that Oklahoma's probably going to get wiped out in the college football playoff? Yeah, most likely.
Probably, yeah.
Probably, definitely,
Sure.
certainly. It all depends on how Skylar Thompson can move this offense. They were virtually unstoppable in the second and third quarters of that game against Oklahoma. Moving to the Navy side, of course, Malcolm Perry. You've heard his name all season long. Dark horse candidate for the Heisman late in the season. But they've been capitalizing on some weak defenses all season, I think. Very shaky Houston, very shaky SMU, Army, Connecticut, Tulane, USF. They didn't really face the heavy hitters too much in the American. They avoided Cincinnati, they avoided UCF. They lost to Memphis, of course. They avoided Temple. There's too many teams in this conference, to be honest.
Make it bring back the Big East.
So give me Kansas State in handily fashion, putting a romping on the Navy midshipmen. Again, no faith in football. Go.
Yeah, not at all. There's none. Yeah, Garrett, again, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I like what Navy has done this season. I think they come in with a lot of passion, a lot of fire under their bellies to try and get this 11th win in their program. Made this one of the most winningest programs, senior classes in Navy midshipman history, probably. And yeah, Kansas State sometimes has some great wins, most notably beating up on Oklahoma and most recently Iowa State, but also has some pretty puzzling losses. They lost, close games to Texas and West Virginia, who aren't great teams. But yeah, I think the game comes down to Skylar Thompson, and if he can move the offense enough against a pretty stout Navy defense here to spread the ball around, but certainly do it more with his legs, I would argue, to get some yardage, some scores that way. And I think Navy's shown the ability to stop those kinds of teams, whether it's the armed forces like Army and Air Force who have those dual threat running quarterbacks, whether it was Houston, I forget their quarterback's name at the moment.
Isn't it Dana Holgerson's son?
Is
Or
his son
Eric
now?
King.
Derek
When did
King
they play?
quit.
No, it was Dana Holgerson's son.
No, it was Clayton Tune.
Oh, sorry. I
Okay,
thought
no,
it
no
was.
worries. Well, regardless, I think that the teams that they have beaten have been those kind of dual threats teams with a running quarterback. I think Navy is a very athletic team, of course, certainly undersized given their requirements to um, be in the armed forces. But I think their athleticism will keep them mobile, able. They'll be well prepared, as I'd expect from an armed forces academy for this game to face his running quarterback. And then they can game plan successfully around that, around stopping Skylar Thompson's legs, especially. I think they'll be able to pull this one out as well. Of course, they're playing the Liberty Bowl as well in Memorial Stadium. I think that kind of hurrah, pizzazz, whatever you want to call it, for the armed forces will inspire them as well. I just always respect what these men have to do on the football field and, of course, in life and beyond. So I'm going to pull for Navy here to beat Kansas State as the favorites by stopping Skylar Thompson's legs.
All right. Yeah, breaking his legs. Max, tell us about the Nova Home Loans Arizona Bowl
I would
down
love
in
to, Garrett.
Tucson.
I would love to. Well, if you're looking for a home loan, you can go to Northern Virginia, I guess, and get one, or go to Arizona. I don't really understand what
Or
this bowl,
Villanova.
or Villanova. So yeah, just go to Villanova, go to Philadelphia, go to some town in North Virginia or Arizona. You can get a home loan, in case you are looking to do that. But more importantly, after you get your home loan and you buy your house in Arizona, you can go walk to the stadium in Tucson and see the Wyoming Cowboys take on the Georgia State Panthers. This is a matchup of similar-ish style offenses, I would say. Both are certainly run heavy. Wyoming more traditional, more pro style, hard nosed running, whereas Georgia State relies more on the kind of spread offense, read options, etc. Um, the bigger difference, I think, is that Wyoming is a much slower paced team, has a pretty stout defense, giving up less than 18 points a game, whereas Georgia State um, scores over 30 points a game, but also gives up gives up over 36 points per game. So they just come down to which team can run better, Wyoming or Georgia State, and I think that advantage will go to Wyoming. I think that they're going to have bigger linemen, can win in the trenches on both sides of the ball to really control the lines of scrimmage, and I think that's going to be the really key factor here. They have lost to Air Force, who is another kind of they are a triple option, another very much spread offense, rushing offense. And that's pretty bad, did Wyoming, but I think that given another week to prepare, more weeks, to prepare, I think that this team's size is going to be able to overmatch Georgia State and what they will be bringing to the table. So I'll be taking Wyoming here, defending kind of the home turf in Arizona, the Mountain West.
I don't know. I think that Dan Ellington, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Dan Ellington has struggled in the last few weeks. They really haven't been the same team since they got off to their hot start. Really kind of limping down the stretch. Wyoming is a team that will grind it out with you in the trenches, win low-scoring battles. So who dictates the pace? Defense wins championships.
Always.
And the Mountain West is probably better than this middling team from the Sun Belt. So I will take the Wyoming, the Fighting Craig Bulls, who's pretty old. Their coach win by 2 touchdowns, 28-14. You took away most of my points, Max. So way to go. But now, from what I understand, you currently in Vermont. We'd like to talk a little bit about our small school of the week.
Of course. Well, this week's honor of representing the small school of the week falls on me to shed light on a university that you probably didn't know about, or know much about at the very least. So given that I am in Vermont for the holiday season, visiting my sister and mom, I wanted to talk about UVM, the Catamounts, and what
Not
they
Dartmouth?
have.
Oh, no, they're in New Hampshire. I lied.
No, yeah, Dartmouth, New Hampshire. No, no, I'm talking about Vermont. UVM, the Catamounts. And a couple things struck me when looking up this small school, why it matters. First of all, it is in Burlington, Vermont, which is a
Code
very beautiful
Factory.
city. Burlington Coat Factory. Yeah, the university is actually housed there. All the students that go to UVM are employed by Mr. Burlington himself and the Coat Factory, or
Correct.
herself, the dynamic duo there. But no, UVM is known as an agricultural school, as an environmental school, and actually recently got a $250,000 grant rewarding them for their use of sustainable food production solutions, locally homegrown, and using underutilized foods like monkfish from the Henry Kendall Foundation. So if you go to school in Vermont at UVM, you're probably eating something you didn't know existed, but is very sustainable because no one else eats it. So congrats to them for that.
Right.
Additionally,
They
there's some pretty
invented
cool.
Ben and Jerry's.
They invented, yeah, Vermont invented Ben and Jerry's. Also, they invented um, Bernie Sanders hatched in
Yes.
a lab. But more importantly, maybe not. There's some other notable alumni of UVM, including John Dewey, who created the Dewey Decimal System, which I
Yeah.
thought for the longest time was how you did math, but um, is is not true. As well
Nobody
as
does math anymore.
no, I mean honestly, it's all on your phone, on your computer. No one maths. Additionally, more recently, a graduate of UVM, Jody Williams, won a Nobel Peace Prize about 20 years ago in her international campaign to ban landmines. So some pretty cool alumni from UVM. They've got a really strong sense of nonprofit entrepreneurship as well, and have a couple featured stores and organizations in their
Yeah.
catalogs, and then kind of what makes them so unique. So that's a small school of the week and kind of about them. Of course, a big reason why we're featuring them as well is because of the sports that they have. Not known for football school, but certainly a decent basketball school playing in
America East.
the America East. Yes, thank you, thank you. Which I think is most notable because they were the team that lost to UMBC 3 years ago now in the tourney, for the American East tourney. And of course, UMBC went on to then beat Virginia as the first ever 16 seed to beat a 1 seed. Maybe ever again, who knows?
Shout out to
So
Vermont for making that happen.
exactly, Vermont is really the unsung hero here. Who cares about the Retrievers? It was really the Catamounts who saw the potential of UMBC to win that game and sacrifice themselves. But beyond that, they're usually a pretty good team. They win the America East more often than not, it seems like in recent years. Pretty well coached, and this year they got some pretty exciting players. Most notably, their starting forward, Anthony Lamb, who's leading their team with 17 points a game and
Right.
8 rebounds a game, as well as a pretty effective and efficient point guard. Only a couple of assists a game, but gets over a steal per game, as well as um, is able to control the ball really well with minimizing his turnovers. Again, that was Steph Smith. So it's just a pretty solid team overall. They are 8-5 currently. Are taking on, oh goodness, George Washington this weekend,
All
I
by
believe.
himself, and he's pretty old.
Yeah, honestly. So hopefully it'll be another win for the Catamounts as they continue their reign on the American East Conference in basketball. George Washington really, is dead, quite frankly. So if Vermont doesn't win this game, I'll be pretty amazed. But you never know. The spirits of Christmas past could come out and help G Dub win. But I do think that the good old Catamounts will pull that one out. And again, continue on their winning ways, try and get back to the tournament, which they missed out on last year, I believe. Um, yeah, that is our small school of the week out here in Burlington, Vermont.
I believe they did make the tournament last year, but the
Oh,
year before they missed.
great.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
All right.
that sounds more right than what I said.
It's okay. We're going to quickly pick a couple college basketball games. We've been slumping on
Yeah.
those a little bit. I'll go first. right off the dome here. I got Texas Southern
Mm,
going to Tempe and pulling out a win over Arizona State. Texas Southern, I think 3-8 on the season so far, or something like that. But
yep.
don't ever take that uh, at face value because they are notorious for going on extremely difficult road trips to start the season. They often won't play a single home game in the non-conference and will play only Power Five schools, or at least um, at least a lot of them anyway.
Yeah.
And I think one season they started off like 0-14 and made the tournament because they just went on an abusing road trip. Um, Most recently, they almost snuck out a win over the Oregon Ducks, who are ranked 8th in the nation, whereas Arizona State recently went down by 40 to St. Mary's.
Mm.
In a very one-sided show, they had one player score 43 points, and the rest of their team scored 20.
Oh,
So I'll take Tuscaloosa Southern to get over the hump, um, take down a Power 5 opponent like they did last year, and I will also take Liberty, who got off to an extremely hot 14-0 start to start the season, going in their first real tough test of the year against LSU in Baton Rouge, starting off definitely with some promise. They have a couple good wins and a couple puzzling losses and some close losses to teams like VCU and USC. Um, so I'll take Liberty in a close one over the cheating Will Wades
mm.
of the SEC. Max,
Yeah.
off to you.
Yeah. I have two games as well. The first one I want to highlight is a bigger game for certain. Kansas taking on the Stanford Cardinal in Stanford at their home court, which I think is ripe for an upset. Kansas, of course, just came off a loss on the road to Villanova, a really good team. But this Stanford team, similarly, is not really being recognized right now. They're 11-1, including an 8-0 record at home. Their one loss was to Butler, which is another very good team, a ranked team. It was at home, but it was a 1-point loss there. Their star player, Oscar De Silva, didn't have a great game. Only had a couple of rebounds, despite being a 6'9" forward and grabbing closer to 6 in a game. So I think that if he can get back on track, I think that this reeling Kansas team and really just there's no front runners out there right now in college basketball. I think Stanford has a chance to really continue on that trend, beating a very good Kansas team, but being at home, I think we'll give them that advantage that they need. It'll get them the recognition they'd want to be ranked. If they can win that game and still have just the one loss with the one win over a top 5 team, right? So I think this will be a very motivated team in Stanford. I think it's a very talented team that's shown the ability to win in a variety of ways. And I think if De Silva can continue his efforts down low, high percentage scoring shots, several rebounds, right, close to 6 a game, I think they're going to pull out that one over Kansas. That's the first game. The other game I want to look at was Kent State going on the road to play Mississippi State. Kent State right now is 10-2 on the season, and Mississippi State is 8-3, so it's a pretty important game. Mississippi State did just lose to New Mexico State earlier on in the week at home. I think that kind of sets up the reason for why I believe that this Kent State team, who again had a pretty solid season, there are no real notable wins yet so far. I think this is a chance for them to make a name for themselves in that way. They did have a close, not that close. They had a pretty bad loss to Ohio State earlier, losing 71-52. But I think that this is a chance for them to end their non-conference schedule on a high note, taking down an SEC team, a team that's been pretty successful in basketball over the last couple of years, in Mississippi State. And yeah, that's what I want to highlight. I think Kent State's definitely got an opportunity here to make it happen. They have their leading scorer, who I could have sworn was going to be related, but is not. Danny Pippen, bearing no relationship from what we can find to
As far as
Scottie
we
Pippen.
can tell.
Yeah, we're not very good at this kind of stuff. We aren't very sleuth detective-y. But with a name like Pippen, how can you not lead your team to victory? Representing
Rebound your team to victory. Just be a beast, right?
be a
That's what he
beast.
does. Rebound.
Yeah, not so much. Yeah. He gets 6.5 a game, so that's pretty strong actually. Yeah. He gets 2.4 blocks in a game though, so I guess definitely is a defensive guy. He's a 6'9" forward, gets about 15 points a game as well. So very overall good player. Yeah, if he can stay strong down low in the paint, knock some outside shots down, and especially defend the paint on the inside, I think they'll have a chance to take it.
Thanks for staying up with us as we prepare to enter a new decade.
Mm.
The next time you see us will be the last day of the decade, right?
Hopefully, yeah, if we can stay on schedule, we'll be doing this again on Tuesday.
That is right. Max, any explanation as to why you'll lose your picks this week?
Yeah, because I did no research, and I'm going purely on my gut, and that's bode me very poorly so
don't
far.
have a big gut.
I got a pretty small gut.
And I have a bigger gut.
That is true. Your gut is bigger than mine. I think that means there's more chance that you will be right. But you never know. It's bowl season. Anything can happen. The MAC can become the best conference. Will become the best conference, whichever. And then we'll all just go crazy because we don't know what's happening.
Well, on behalf of this stick figure Odell Beckham reaching back to make the catch, I will be signing off. We will see you on Tuesday. Go to Vegas, go make your picks.
Mm-hmm.
That's Max Stacks. This is your boy G Lash Cash. We'll see you again in a few days.